Hello everyone, I'm Thor and in this presentation we are going to talk about a deep link between operating systems and gaming. But what is an operating system anyways? An operating system or an OS is basically a type of system software that is essential for running and using your computer easily. Now, it is essential because among the many different functions an OS provides, these two are the main ones, which are abstraction, meaning it provides a way that is easier, simpler, and universal for controlling and managing different and complicated hardware on different devices. And because the US also provides some type of resource management, meaning it controls exactly and precisely how, in what order, and when software can access those hardware resources. Now, how are these important in gaming, you may ask? It is important because an OS provides some type of hardware bridge, or in other words, an abstraction layer. So you can basically play the same game on different devices with different hardware. And it also provides resource management. So, for example, you can use a streaming platform to stream the game you are currently playing without the game or the streaming platform lagging or breaking. And it also provides stability, meaning a bug or an error in the game code only affects the game itself, and no other software that is currently running is affected. And also because the game titles you can play depends on the type of, the brand of the OS that you are using. For example, if you use Windows, you can play a lot of game titles, but if you use Apple OS, iOS, you can only play a limited number of titles. Now, we generally have an understanding of what an OS is. We will now move on to an overview of different OSs that are used for gaming with my colleague, Koji.
So here's the overview of the operating systems that are popular today. So in a nutshell, Windows has a huge game library compared to other operating systems. Uh, their graphic APIs like DirectX is very widely used and supported by a lot of developers, and essentially the mindset of uh, Microsoft, or just the philosophy of it, is everything just works. Right? It's plug and play. An example of one of the games that you might be able to play on Windows, uh, Elden Ring on day one, for example, or another game, let's say Cyberpunk on release, you could play it immediately. Uh, Next up, Linux. So what Linux is an open source software. It's very customizable, and they rely on Valve's Proton to run Windows games. And how that usually would work is that they would convert DirectX games to Vulkan, uh, do the Vulkan graphic API, and that transition uh, has a very minimal performance loss. So it's not the worst thing in the world if you play on Linux. One of the games that you could play on Linux is Baldur's Gate 3, and it runs flawlessly for a lot of users. And finally, the last one on this list is the Mac OS. Well, the Mac OS is known for their very powerful chips, but unfortunately, there are very few games that are ported to its graphic interface, graphic API, which is called Metal, and for that reason, it's because um, their API is much more different compared to both the Vulkan and the DirectX. So, in cause of that, it has very few games. Example being, the few games that it does have is Resident Evil Village, which runs really well. But uh, I digress.
So I'm going to talk about graphic handling in different operating systems when it came to gaming performance. So the graphic APIs and GPU are the most important component when it comes to gaming. So let's start with the Windows. So the Windows uses the H12 Ultimate API. It offers peak performance and top visuals in almost every games. And the next is the Linux. It uses Falcon API. It's a high performance APIs and also support cross-platform. And then for the Mac OS, it uses Metal API. It's an excellent API, but only logged into its own ecosystem. And for the last part is about Xbox or console, if you want to call. It uses another version of the H12 API from Windows. It is highly optimized and has even low overhead than its Windows counterpart. The next topic is about memory management. Memory management is one of the most crucial factor when it came to gaming because efficient allocation of RAM and VRAM is really important for avoiding status and loading hinges. Let's start with again for the window. Window uses separate RAM and VRAM, but features like resizable bar create a faster bridge between them. And for the Apple or Mac OS, Mac OS on Apple Silicon uses unified memory architecture, a single pool for CPUs and GPU, reducing latencies and power use. And as for the Linux, it's really quite famous for its efficiency because it's cache data for speed, but instantly free up the speed when the game need more. And for the Xbox, it is quite similar to the macOS. It also uses unified memory architecture, but the OS reserves a small fixed amount of memory for system functions. The next topic is about multitasking. So Windows uses a priority-based scheduler which but then can disrupt games with background text. So they created the game mode and it mitigates this by prioritizing game threats and suppressing non-critical background activity. And as for the Linux, it is excellent and user controllable process scheduler. It allows finally tune system to act as dedicated rig by focusing resources almost exclusively on the game and critical operating system tasks. And why Mac OS Grand Central Dispatch keep the system generally responsive? Running other intensive software like Final Cut Pro, for example, significantly impacts gaming performance due to resource contention. And for the last Xbox or console operating system deliver exceptionally stable performance by dedicating all system resources like the CPUs and GPUs solely to the game and effectively eliminating multitasking overhead. And so the last topic is about compatibility. So let's start with again Windows operating system. So in Windows, we can play almost all the games developed by gaming companies and also set the standard for operating system when it comes to compatibility. One of the most noticeable features is that all major NTT systems, for example, Royal Vanguard, are supported. And then for the Linux, we can play up to like about 70 to 80% of games by the help of ProtonDB, which translates direct extra API call to Vulkan API in real time. Although it can access most of the games, the drawbacks are not all NDG systems are available on Linux because most of the games are primarily designed based on the Windows operating system. And moving on to the Mac OS, there's only like a small pool of games available in Mac OS, which are native titles and indie games. The ability to run Windows games, for example, AAA title games, is unmanageable and low performance. And for the let's Xbox and it's for OS or console operating system. It's like excellent in its own system. You can play all the games, including in the Xbox library, and therefore the obvious disadvantage is that we cannot run software outside of this library and platform. So thank you. That's all from my part. I will pass to my team member Han to continue to his topic.
So today I will be talking about the user experience and popularity of gaming operating systems. So according to the latest Steam survey, Windows continue to dominate in the gaming world, holding more than 95% of total share. The main reasons are clear, like Windows support DirectX and it offers stable driver and has largest game library. For most gamers, especially like competitive players, Windows provides the smoothest and most reliable experience. And next we have Linux. So Linux, which makes about 2 to 3% of gamers, even though it is still a small share, its popularity is growing because of Broadom and the Steam Deck, which allow many Windows games to run on Linux. However, Linux still struggles with NTG system used in online multiplayer games like Fortnite, Valorant, and Apex. This game often doesn't work on Linux because their anti-cheat software is not supposed support on Linux. And then we will be moving on to Mac. Mac is really small. It's only used about like 1 to 2% of gamers. Most Mac users enjoy like casual and indoor game, but they face a major limitations. Many AAA games are simply not available for Mac. Apple's new M1 and M2 chip have improved gaming performance, but the library of supported games remain really small, so they don't really have so many choices. Okay, and then we will move on to what is good about Windows. Windows is good in performance, is the best performance among these three operating systems, and you have full anti-cheat support. And but there's a bad thing about Windows. It can be really expensive, and the system update can sometimes cause issue. For Linux, the advantage is free. It's customizable. You can customize whatever you like, and it's improving fast. But the bad major thing is for online game, it doesn't fully work because of the anti-cheat software. For Mac OS, the good thing is it is the great stability. Almost every Mac has a beautiful design. Yes, they have beautiful display, but they can't run a very big game like AAA games and some other games.
When we were given the question, what operating system is considered the best for gaming, and our verdict was Windows One, Windows, just Windows in general for gaming. And it's undisputed because of its essentially universal compatibility and developer support. Though in the future for operating systems, what we look forward to, or what we hope that will come out, is uh, the game modes that they offer in the settings will be more aggressive, and they will be shutting down more background tasks to boost performance. Services like Xbox Cloud Gaming could make your OS less important. For example, like a Steam OS, which is primarily focused just on gaming, and it doesn't utilize anything unnecessary for its singular purpose. And some people might prefer that. Some people might dual boot. Uh, it's to each discretion. And finally, despite Windows being the best today, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be the best tomorrow. We know that future innovations and future improvements will be made as we grow. Anyways, thank you very much for listening to me, and have a good day.